Detroit just changed its heartbeat, not with a headline splashy enough to sell jerseys, but with the kind of silence that echoes through hallways and meeting rooms film paused. Markers lifted, eyes locked on the front. I'm going to take you with me inside that silence. In the next minutes, I'll break down what's really happening across the defensive front. How Brad Holmes can pivot the roster without wrecking the cap. Why a particular veteran edge keeps resurfacing in internal conversations. How Dan Campbell adjusts the rotation and third down packages. And what this means for the Lions' identity in November football. I'll lay out the contingency map, who gets more snaps, which calls shift on the whiteboard. What the rush laying rules look like when the primary closer isn't out there. And the exact profile of the pass rusher who fits this moment. Stay with me, because the twist you're expecting is bigger than a name. It's about what a contender does when the margin for error shrinks to one drive. Let's rewind to the last trade deadline, because that's where this story really learned how to breathe. Detroit didn't blink. They moved decisively for premium help off the edge and brought in a proven finisher from Cleveland to stabilize the rotation when it mattered most. That transaction wasn't splash theater. It was calculated survival. The front office learned two hard truths then. First, when you're playing January football, you can't wait on maybes at defensive end. Second, cost control pressure is a currency you never have enough of. Those pages from last year's playbook are already back on the desk. Zoom into the depth chart. The staff doubled down on length and power in the spring, then re-upped on a familiar veteran who knows the scheme. On paper, it looked adequate. On the field, the attrition tax hit again. A chest issue on one of the big rotational bodies stalled the plan right before the bye, and the internal timeline pointed to late November as the realistic window for him to be himself again. That created a snap count vacuum on the edges that Detroit filled with grit and a bit of lightning. Al-Quaid Muhammad has been playing like a man shot out of a cannon, stacking violent hands with a tighter corner. But the coaches know what the league knows sustaining, that pace across cold weather football is a different animal. You ride the streak, but you protect yourself against regression. Meanwhile, the interior woke up. The return of Alan McNeil flipped the pocket, collapsed guards into the lap of quarterbacks, and forced coordinators to declare extra bodies inside. That's the tell you look for when you hunt matchups. When the A gap is a fire alarm, the C gap becomes the emergency exit. Detroit's plan has always been to squeeze QBs between a rising pocket and outside speed, and when one pillar wobbles, you either reinforce it quickly or the whole house leans late in games. Now, here's where the room got louder. Around week 7, the temperature of the phones rose again. The noise league-wide matched the body language at Allen Park. Detroit was canvassing the edge market quietly, surgically, without bidding against itself. And one name kept circling back on my calls, Arden Key. If you're seeing the same pattern I'm seeing, it's because the profile checks every box this front office values in October and November. He's a twitchy, bend-through-contact rusher with a motor that travels. He's living in a scheme that hasn't maximized his rush opportunities. And he comes with a rental price that doesn't torch 2026 draft flexibility. Through 5 games this season before a quad tightened him up, Key stacked pressures on limited snaps, enough to prove the juice is real when he's deployed as a third down hammer. Contractually, he's the definition of deadline-friendly, final-year money that can be paraded neatly into the cap. With a realistic day 3 pick framework that doesn't pull you out of premium rounds next, April. Fold that into what Aaron Glenn loves to do on money downs. Detroit's third and medium calls have leaned into simulated pressures and overloads that force protections to declare early. With Key in the picture, you can build NASCAR looks that pair his cornering with inside stunts from McNeil, then squeeze the opposite edge with a power end who sets the edge first and counters second. That balance matters because Campbell's defense doesn't chase sacks for the sake of sack totals. It chases negative plays that set up the offense with plus field position. A rotational closer who wins in 2.6 seconds isn't just a highlight, he's a Possession swing. Now, take a breath and feel the weight of what I'm about to say. Because this is the moment the whiteboard got erased and redrawn. Aiden Hutchinson is out. Not a maintenance day, not a pitch count, out. That's your headline. And it explains the urgency you felt all week without anyone saying it out loud. When your alpha goes down, everything gets repriced: the pass rush menu, the blitz appetite, the coverage shells behind it. You don't replace Hutch one for one. You replace the mat he forces on offenses. Detroit's staff will respond in layers. First, they'll tighten the rush lane discipline to protect and contain without burning a spy. Second, they'll broaden the pressure tree. More mug looks from the second level. More slant exchange to generate inside wins. More three-man creepers that turn a nickel into an edge late. Third, they'll hunt a cost-efficient finisher who turns McNeil's interior havoc into actual drive-killing results. This is where the art and key conversation graduates from rumor to logic. The Titans are trending towards seller mode, and the return won't be a premium pick for a mid-season rental with modest base. For Detroit, that's precisely the bandwidth you leverage when your window is now and your locker room expects action that aligns with its identity. Key's recent production pressures that outpace sacks actually fits the line's teaching points. Win the rep, force the throw off platform, and let your back seven eat mistakes. If the quad grades clean on a physical, you slide him into a role that demands 25 impact snaps, not 50 survival snaps. That's how you keep the juice fresh into December. What about the in-house answers? You'll see more creative ways to free up Muhammad's first step wider alignments against heavy hands. Reduce splits to make tackles short set, and a few five-man looks that widen the B-gap and dare offenses to run into loaded boxes. On early downs, expect heavier rotation with body types that play to run square and spill everything to flowing backers. Glenn won't let the edge soften just because the headline name is unavailable. He'll make it uglier, more condensed, and he'll trust the tackling to finish. That's Lions football when the weather turns. From a cap and asset perspective, this is the sweet spot for Holmes. You avoid lighting a second-round pick on fire for a name brand who doesn't compound with your core. You target a veteran who has already proven he can play winning snaps on a playoff field. You keep your premium capital, and you give yourself the option to walk after the season or re-sign on your terms. That optionality is the reason Detroit is built to absorb shocks like this without losing the plot. If you've been with me for a while, you know I don't do panic. I do plans. And the plan right now is elegant because it's honest. 1. Acknowledge the gravity of losing Hutchinson and recalibrate the front to protect the edges. 2. Get healthier and keep Davenport's return on a realistic arc. 3. Add a rotational closer whose contract and traits line up with what the Lions actually call on Sundays. That triage keeps the defense's spine intact and the locker room's belief untouched. Before I push to the finishing take, let me say this. If you ride with this team and you want coverage that treats you like you're in the room, hit that subscribe and drop a like. I'm here every day with film-grounded breakdowns, roster logic, and real talk, no fluff, no stunts. Just Lions football the way we live it. Here's my concise read. Losing a Aiden Hutchinson is a seismic event, but it doesn't have to be season-defining if Detroit acts like Detroit. Lean into the interior dominance that Allen is giving you. Expand the pressure menu just enough to steal a couple of key third downs each week. And go get a closer who doesn't cost you tomorrow, someone like Arden Key, whose price and play style match the moment. That's how you hold serve in November and give Hutchinson a runway to return to a team that hasn't bled standings points while he was out. I want your voice here. Would you pull the trigger on that kind of trade? Or would you ride the current rotation and trust the scheme to cover the gap? Tell me who you call. Tell me what pick you move. Tell me how you manage the snaps on short week turnarounds. I'm reading everything you drop below, and I'll build the next breakdown off your best ideas. If you want fast updates and deep dives that respect your time, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. This is Lions News Fan Report, and I'll be back the moment the front office makes its move.